The Bookshelf with me, Ryan Tubridy, is brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. And Eason have a rich heritage of bookselling since 1886. It's probably where you got your first ever book, or maybe your last one, and hopefully your next one after you listen to this episode of our podcast. Stay listening for Ryan Recommends, my weekly recommendation, where I'll discuss a book I've read recently that I think you'll really enjoy too. And I'm very excited to let you know that Eason are running a promotion on children's books for a limited time only. Pop into your local Eason store and pick any 2 kids or teen or young adult books and get the cheapest one half price. So see in store for details. They're the ones with the purple stickers. Eason. Be inspired. Welcome to The Bookshelf, and today I'm interviewing a guest who I've been dying to meet. Haven't met her yet until this very afternoon. And the reason I wanted our guest to be on the show today is because once every now and again, somebody hands you a book. In this case, my brother handed me this lady's book and said, I think you should read this. I think you get a lot out of it. I read the book in about 2 or 3 sittings, and I learnt an awful lot about humanity and redemption and kindness and teachers and teaching and goodness and lots more besides. So when I made contact with our guest today by Instagram to say how much I enjoyed her book, she got back immediately and we became connected in a manner of speaking. But today we meet, and what a pleasure it is to welcome the author of a book called Poor. It's sold 5 bazillion copies in this country and around the world because it's so engaging and compelling. If you haven't read it yet, pick it up immediately. The author of that book is our guest, Dr. Katriona O'Sullivan. Katriona, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Finally, I get to meet Ryan.
Well, it's just one of those things because my career trajectory changed a little bit just as your book was coming out. So we were ships that passed in the night.
Exactly.
And I would have very much have met you in different circumstances, but it was a little delayed. And we got there. And I was late to the party to read your book because I was feeling at the time, I don't know if I want to let this sadness into my head, this poverty, this difficult childhood and life. And I had a misrepresentation of the book in my mind.
Yeah.
Until eventually, when I felt constitutionally strong enough, I picked it up and I went, this isn't anything like I expected. This is a fascinating book. What is your book about?
So I think for me, it's a story of triumph. And I understand your fear of picking it up. Sometimes when you write a story about surviving poverty and trauma and the things that I went through, it can look like poverty porn at the end of the day. And there are books like that, but my book isn't actually. It's funny and sad and happy and honest. And so, it's my memoir, and it's the story of growing up in what I call it poor, because we meet lots of people who've lived without money, but I lived without, I suppose, love and without food and with significant trauma. My parents were heroin addicts, and there was a lot of horrible things that happened in my childhood. But I was lucky that along my life, I had these pockets of sunshine, these adults in my childhood and in my adulthood that actually saw past, I suppose, the way I presented to the world and helped me discover that I'm actually really intelligent and, I'm able to go to a place like Trinity College and become a doctor. So it's my journey.
Yeah.
And I suppose as well, it's a social document. Like, I'm an academic and I write a lot of papers that nobody reads, Ryan, because they're so intellectual. And so in some ways they're inaccessible. That's what we do in academia. Like, seriously, we use science language for our scientific audience, but they don't actually translate a lot to the layman who just wants to understand things. So my book is actually, it's not academic, but it's me using my knowledge of inequality and injustice and psychology to actually reflect on what we can do better to help poor people not only survive, but actually thrive.
Thank you. And that concludes our interview. That gives you the broad sweep, so people can say, so that's the book that I haven't read yet. We don't need to get into chapter by chapter. I was struck by in your story a couple of things. One was your dad, educated, articulate, smart,
really smart,
lost, destitute, addicted, fighting demons, losing to the demons.
Yes.
God, it was epic. His struggle was epic.
Yeah, I think my dad represents, I suppose, some of the history of Ireland. My dad was born illegitimately and was put up for adoption by his mother because she couldn't look after him. And he was put into a mother and baby home. She actually on his own. He wasn't with her, so he was placed on his own and looked after. And then he was in 5 different foster homes up until the age of 4. So that in that really important time in a child's life, my dad didn't develop a foundation. He didn't develop, I suppose, what lots of lucky people have is this idea that he was valuable, that was deep in his psyche. And so he met my grandparents when he was 5, and they were in leafy Clontarf. That's what it's been described
Which
as.
is, to people who don't know, it's a very posh part of town.
It's a lovely part of town. And they were wonderful people. They were Christian in the proper way. And they loved in the proper way.
I like that qualification. Yeah, interesting. We might go there later, but keep going. Yes.
In the proper way. And they loved my dad, and they tried their very best. And he went to a great school. He went to St. Paul's, a lovely school. And he went to Belvedere, a private school, to do his Leaving Cert. And he did really well in his Leaving Cert. And after he finished his he got an offer for Trinity, and he got on the boat and moved to England and became a drug addict. And I think...
You make it sound like a career choice.
I know. Well,
but
I think in some ways it was, at some points for my dad, I think, and I think with all addiction, there's like decisions that are made at times where you go one way or the other. And my dad I don't think if he could see the full outcome, he would have made any of the decisions, but he made some decisions that actually led him to where he ended up, which was addicted to heroin and destitute, prisons. But like my dad was also like a wonderful man. Like he kind of reminds me of you a little bit, Ryan. I'm not being flirty here, but like he was vivacious, and he could use words really well, and he could tell a story, and he could hold an audience, and he loved music. So
a reader?
Avid. Like my dad taught me, I could read when I was age 4. Like the gifts that he gave me were plentiful. There was a lot of hurt, but there was also, he taught me to read. He taught me how to tie my shoelaces, but he loved books. Yeah, that was his heaven, is like sitting in a room, reading a book. Like he described his childhood to me. He used to go down to Dollymount on his bike with a book, Mitch School, and go to Dollymount and just have a book and read. That was, I suppose, who my dad was meant to be, but he had the demons.
The wrong version won. The wrong version.
Yeah, exactly.
That little bookworm on the beach got lost along the way. Yeah. And your mum was unfortunately also an addict. But I'm loath to go into that because the book is there.
Yes.
And we can read that. And that's what's so extraordinary about your book. But I want to go to young you for the purpose of the first question, which is about the book from your childhood that you loved. I still think about the scene in your book. And then part of the reason I'm so happy to meet you in real life, I really mean it, and to see and look you in the eye, is because you describe that teacher who said, okay, this girl smells, there's urine, there's a lack of hygiene, she's been mocked, she's in trouble. And a teacher can either let that fester, and that's somebody else's problem, or do what this teacher did.
Miss Arkinson.
Tell us what Miss Arkinson did. If you could just recount that scene, because I think it's just etched in my brain.
I think so. Yeah, I was as bright and as vivacious and hopeful as every little girl is when I started school. But I wet the bed and I had nits and I didn't have anyone caring for me, and I was hungry, which made me unpopular. So I didn't have anyone to play with. And I think Miss Arkinson noticed this. And this particular day, I was in school, and I remember Miss Arkinson and the teacher's assistant, they were kind of looking at me, and Miss Arkinson called me over and said, go into the little bathroom. And in the little bathroom, she pulled out this bag, and in the bag, there was a towel, a white towel, and a white flannel and 5 pairs of knickers. And it was actually the teacher's assistant who was with me, and she knelt down in front of me and looked me in the face, and she said, Katriona, you haven't done anything wrong. And I remember, even at age 5 or 6, knowing that I had done something wrong, knowing that we were the bad family, I was a bad kid, but I was also really grateful that she was seeing me. And so she taught me to wash myself, and she said, this bag is going to be on our desk every day. Come in a little bit early and just wash yourself. Oh. And it gave me a bit of autonomy. It gave me the capacity to be able to look after myself a little bit and to be able to play with the other kids without feeling like I was smelly. Like I didn't, we weren't taught to wash.
Was that your first taste of dignity?
I think so. I think it really was. I think being in Miss Arkinson's class for that first year of my life, she believed in me irrespective of how I actually behaved. Because I was a bold kid. Like I couldn't regulate myself. But this teacher, Miss Arkinson, she didn't see the bad behaviour. She just saw a kid who had equal potential and she treated me like that. And there's something about being in the presence of an adult who believes in you, who sees your potential. It goes from being within them to being within you.
Yeah.
I remember in the evening time after being in her class for 6 months, I'd be lying in my bed, in my bunk bed, really the noise in the house, the craziness, afraid. And the thoughts would be, who cares about me?
How old were you?
6 or 7. And I remember that thought, there was an afterthought, and it was a little whisper, Miss Arkinson thinks you're somebody.
Oh.
And that has been the soundtrack of my life.
Yeah.
These doubts, these hurtful, these feelings, but then also these adults, these teachers who saw me and cared for me and loved me, their belief has also been like the soundtrack of my life that kept me going, Ryan.
The book from your childhood, is it related to any of this? I mean, is there, apart from escape, everyone talks about escape, but where are we going?
Roald Dahl.
Well.
The BFG. Now,
it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, but it's not about the story, Ryan. Of course, like everybody talks about escape with books. But for a child like me, I needed to believe that someone was going to come and rescue me. I needed to believe that.
Okay.
And Sophie in that book had nobody. And the giants rescued her. Yeah. Like I read that book over and over again. So
the BFG is the big friendly giant.
Yes.
He's so tall, he's able to blow dreams into the ears of the children as they sleep at night. I mean, it's a classic story. And Sophie is our heroine in this. Yeah. And you would associate yourself, or at least you
100%.
You saw something in her. She was a bookish kid, obviously.
Yes, she was bookish.
So tell me, where were you going with that?
Yeah, so Sophie was an orphan. She was in an orphanage, and she used to like, one night she heard this noise and she woke up and she spotted the giants blowing dreams. So he used to blow dreams to the kids, and lovely dreams for the kids. Of course. And Sophie snuck off with him and ended up getting to know the BFG and becoming his friend and learning all about him. And then there was these other monsters who wanted to kill her. Yeah, there's loads of imaginative things going on, and they ended up meeting the Queen, and all this wonderful stuff happened. But the story is basically a story that these two kind of misfits who didn't really have anybody, who actually were outcasts, found each other and saved each other. For me, that was so hopeful that this little girl who was alone, I was alone, could actually meet and be saved by somebody. So for me, like books like that were the ones that like I loved to read as a child.
Were they life rafts?
Oh yeah. Like the only thing that can keep you going when you're living a difficult childhood like mine is good people in your outside of your home and good stories and imagination. And if I was lucky to be given the gift of reading and then to be able to access things that made it possible for me to dream a different life for myself. Now, fair enough, a giant's not ever going to come and save me. But that book particularly, just I remember being so hopeful that there was a fairy tale out there, that something magical was going to happen to me. And the truth is, something magical did happen to me, Ryan. I escaped my life.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there, because it's so important to hear this idea of this little kid having this dark background but light in these between these covers. Yeah. Was it library or school, or where were the books coming from? Library.
But my mum used to go to the second-hand shop, actually.
Oh, yes.
And I used to read my dad's books. So, like, my dad used to read, like, James Herbert. So there's me, like, reading, like, adult men books when I was, 9 years of age. Whatever I could read.
Yes.
I had a children's Bible. I loved the children's Bible.
Was it illustrated?
It was illustrated. Yeah. Like, I know more Bible stories than my husband, who's a Catholic. That's not right. We weren't baptized, but I always wonder if my sense of justice actually came from the fact that I had this illustrated children's Bible that was by the side of my book. There was the story of Ruth and Jonah and the whale, and I used to read one every single night.
God, you are like a character from a Roald Dahl story. Like they were all beleaguered children.
They were.
George and his marvelous mad. The granny was horrible.
Oh my God.
Poor old Matilda had her. All these kids going, get me out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
And here you were, but you were too young to release yourself from the shackles of society, as it were. This is very difficult for me to mention. I'm going to mention it because we talked briefly before we came on the air, which is when you were raped.
Yes.
And I'm saying that word reluctantly, but because you said to me, I hate when people talk around it. If it happened, say it.
Yes.
Is it okay for me to say that?
It is okay.
And I can ask you, what age were you and what impact did it have on you? And give us a sense of that if you want to. Now, we're happy to not talk about it. We can walk away. But I don't want to cause you any problems. Happy not to go there, but it's just that you said it.
I'm just conscious of the listeners, you know, because there's a lot, like 1 in 4 adults or 1 in 5 worldwide have experienced abuse in childhood. And a lot of people are unhealed. So it's
we'll put a warning on this for sure.
So I was 7 years of age and it was a family friend. I was actually abused by a number of different men in my home. I only write about one because I didn't want my story to be all about that, because that's not what I'm all about.
Yes.
But I wanted to actually talk about, like, children who grow up in the type of poverty I did are 10 times more likely to be sexually abused, Ryan. And we don't ever say that because...
Why not?
I don't know. I think it's scary for people to actually really face the consequences of underprivileged communities. I think it's scary for people to name, like, we choose to leave people live in poverty, and I think that as a society we do. And I think if we ignore the risks, the real risks of poverty, then it makes it easier for us to just drive past Summerhill or Ballymun to our houses in Ballsbridge or wherever we're live in. Okay. But the truth is, I wanted to, you know, kids that are growing up in addiction like me or in poverty with families that are finding it difficult, I was left a lot of the time. Exposed. Yeah. And in my case, a family friend, a friend of my parents sexually abused me, and he sexually abused me for some of my childhood. And I write about the harm that did to me in terms of, like, my body and how it, like, I was connected to my brothers. Like, I loved my brothers. We were like best friends. And then when that happened, it was like this complete fracturing from everybody. It was like it was already bad, but it made it even worse because I had this idea that I'd done something to make that happen. And that I had something wrong with my body. I'd moved a certain way, or I'd said a certain thing, or I shouldn't have done this. And so I it was like the little girl that I was before that had this big glass placed around her. And I think I've spent my whole adult life trying to get back to that little girl, try and tell her that it's okay. Like, the world isn't a bad place. Men aren't bad.
Are you close to her? Like, have you got close to her?
Much closer.
But you're not there yet.
I think... one of the reasons I tell my story is because you don't ever fully heal from trauma.
It's like you're describing a dream sequence.
Yeah.
Where that little girl who was so horribly attacked is nearly there. Yeah. Within your reach to say to her, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. This isn't you. Yeah. You've got to take that mirror and flip it.
There is a piece of me that, so yeah, through therapy, through healing, Ryan, like, what happens is the broken part or the hurt part is still there. It's like a scab, or I use the analogy of a reservoir. It's like a deep reservoir of hurt and shame. And sometimes there's things in my life, like when I have to, you know, when I get intimate with my husband, for example, or where somebody makes a sexual comment, that ripple is huge for me. It taps into that old feeling.
Do we call that a trigger?
A trigger. Yeah. But previously I just react to that trigger. So I'd leave, I'd run away, I'd end the relationship, I'd shout at the person, whatever. Now I have this other kind of reflective adult part of me, this loving side of me that actually knows what to do when them things happen.
You're equipped now.
I'm equipped now. And actually the response gets less and less. Yeah. And I'm more, and like, since I've told my story, actually, it's been really healing. Yeah. Because the world isn't a bad place. Like, the love that I've received in response to poor has been phenomenal.
Let's move to kind of happier, because despite the darkness as described in your childhood, you keep ploughing on. Yeah. And you have no choice.
No.
And I'm going to talk about books again because that's the nature of the conversation. And this is the book that brought you joy. And I think we've mentioned the childhood book, that brought you solace by the sounds of it, and comfort and safety. But what about joy? Where do you find the joy? It's quite a contrast to what we've just been talking about. But let's try it and see what happens. where do you go from night to day?
So, Dr. Zeus, all the places you'll go.
What a beautiful story. Okay, let's talk about that.
So it's a big jump from my early childhood to where I ended up reading Dr. Zeus. So I went to Trinity College. I'd done my degree. I got a first class honours. I'm absolutely deadly.
And now you are.
I didn't know.
I'm just glad I don't have to say that now because you did.
Yeah, but I didn't know, Ryan, that I was this clever. Like the saddest parts of my childhood are not actually the trauma, are actually that I left school not knowing how amazing I am.
Yeah.
That I believed what was taught to me. So anyway, I went to Trinity, got my undergrad, and then I got my PhD. I'm a doctor. And my friend brought me, my good friend at the time who was in AA, and I'm in recovery, and she brought me all the places you'll go.
Yeah.
And the joy of it, because it just accurately represents my life. It's like, it tells you the story in the most wackiest of words about how you'll feel crap and people won't believe in you and the world will seem dark, but you will end up in the most amazing places.
A quote says, "You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose."
Yeah, exactly.
Who needs Oprah Winfrey?
Dr. Zeus.
Dr. Zeus. We have shelves and bookshops dedicated to wellness and good luck and hopefully they work for you. But Dr. Seuss strangely saying to you, believe.
Yeah.
Look what you can do. Look where you can go.
Yeah.
In this lovely rhyming couplets or whatever they're called. It's joyful. That's a great choice of book.
Oh my God. And I have it in my bedroom. I read it at least once a month. It pops out and I go, I'm going to just have a little, because, I still doubt. We all doubt. Life can be tough or whatever. And I read it. Irene put an inscription in the middle as well, like at the beginning, Dr. O'Sullivan, which always makes me kind of stand back and go, God, I actually achieved that. That's me, this 15-year-old girl who left school pregnant and was homeless. I'm a doctor from Trinity.
Yeah.
But
it's a remarkable.
It is remarkable.
When you put it like that.
Yeah. But the book brings me so much joy. And I think everyone should have a look at it, and everyone should remember that no matter how dark things feel, you don't know where you're going to end up.
There's a way out.
There's a way out.
So here's this week's Ryan Recommends, brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. I'm going to go for The Einstein Vendetta by Thomas Harding. Gosh, I love this book because it's really good. It gets history told like a thriller, which is great. 1943, you've got Hitler, you've got Mussolini, but also Albert Einstein, one of the most famous people in the world, the physicist who's helping the Americans make and develop the atom bomb. So he's untouchable in many ways. So the Nazis are going, well, how are we going to get at him? They don't like him. He's Jewish. He's helpful to the Americans. They want to get him. So they decide, well, who's next to him? His childhood friend and cousin, Robert Einstein. Where is he? He's in Florence in Italy with his family, living in a villa, getting on with his life. So they decide, let's get him. And so a cat and mouse game begins. This story goes from 1943 all the way up to 2024. So it's quite a scope, but it's told in less than 300 pages, which makes it perfect, like watching a movie in an hour and a half. It's lovely. The Einstein Vendetta, history told really, really well. That's the recommendation for this week. All right, now back to the show. Every time, my brother gave me your book and said, this book is, she felt it was life-changing to read. And he said, every time describing you, Katriona, every time she's, it looks like there's light. Somebody comes along and shuts the door.
I know.
And every time you think she's going to be taken from the drowning, you put your hand up to say, take me out, I'm drowning.
Yeah.
Somebody puts a foot on her head.
Yeah.
And I think that put me off reading it for so long because I said, that sounds relentless. And yet, weirdly, every time there was that moment, something good came along.
Yeah.
Somebody good. There's another teacher at one stage and get back into school. There's another, you're in Trinity at one stage, another lecturer saying, no, put the drink down.
And stay.
You've got these guardian angel type people who come along every now and again who are going beyond their job spec.
Yeah.
Knocking on your door to say, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Yes.
Your daughter has brains.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that teacher?
Mr. Pickering.
Mr. Pickering. It sounds straight out of Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
Comes along and says, Mr. O'Sullivan, I don't care what you've got in your arm or what you're doing to yourself. Yeah. We need to save her. I mean, honestly.
I know. And you know what? It's accurate though, Ryan. And like sometimes I close the door myself. There wasn't even a situation. Like sometimes what happens when you live through, when you're not loved, Like, that's the truth. When you're not loved, because love is the basis of all of it. If you're loved and you feel connected to another human being from childhood, even if you're really poor, that love will buffer against a lot of the consequences. And I wasn't loved. My parents couldn't love me and prioritize me. And so what happens is that goes into you and it becomes like a dark cloud. I always think about Harry Potter, you know, the big scary black, what are they called? The Dementors. The Dementors. Yeah. It's like you have a Dementor inside. You don't even know how to control it. And so in my teenage years, I was like this mixture of a Dementor and Harry. Let's put them together, like the two, or maybe Hermione.
No, it's a great description.
But it's the two of them together. Yeah. And like the idea that I could choose to be good is a myth. It's not, like, I had no way of escaping this thing that was inside of me. I'd no help to escape it, and I'd no way to heal the darkness, Ryan. I needed psychological help. I needed love. I needed long-term care. And so, yeah, as a teenager, I turned into this chavvy girl, used to roll her skirts up, wear makeup, big hoops, go to school, hoping that Gavin, that was my crush, would notice me. But at the same breath, I was reading Shakespeare and loving Shylock, the story of Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. And Mr. Pickering was my English teacher who saw my love of books. Yeah. And so he took me aside. He didn't shame me because I'd call myself terminally cool. Smoking a Benson and Hedges, chasing the lads, but also wanting to read and be seen.
You were rebelling.
I was rebelling. We all rebel.
Yeah.
But for me, the rebellion was just a bit driven by other things. It wasn't just because I wanted to be a good girl. Like, I remember I used to sit next to a girl called Annette. She was a lovely girl and she had a lovely mum and a lovely family. And Annette had always put her hands up to answer the questions. And I used to look at Annette and I said, I want to be a good girl. And I used to say to myself in the morning before school, I'm not going to tell... Can I swear?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell Mr. Singh to fuck off today in maths. I swear to God, I'm going to stay in maths. And an hour later, the Dementor would come out and I'd be like, fuck off. And he'd send me to the deputy head and she'd be like, again.
Here we go again.
And I'm like, I couldn't control it. It's sometimes when you've been through what I've been, you've got trauma, it affects you cognitively, emotionally, physically, the whole lot of it. It's very hard to control it.
I don't know what age you are. I don't know if you talk about it, but I'm 51 and a half. And it took me years and years to realize that when somebody was acting out, adult or child, don't look at that person acting out. Look through that and find out where it's from.
I think actually the process of writing my book, I've always been compassionate and I've always tried to look beyond the thing, especially having addict parents, Ryan. Sometimes you have to, because you're just, otherwise you have to face the prospect that you're just not loved. So like with my own parents, sometimes I would choose to say they're not doing this on purpose, like there's something else, because the reality of just saying they don't love me was much harder to live with.
Sure.
But as I wrote my book, what was really healing for writing the book was actually, I learned a lot more of that about myself.
Did you?
The compassion for the teenager. So I thought I just went from this 12-year-old abused child who'd had no food, no care, no love, to being like this bad girl who was making bad choices. You know, I just flipped to thinking I just messed up my own life. And like writing my story, actually, like you said, I was able to see, I really didn't, a lot of people don't have a choice.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't make better choices, even if they want to make better choices and they're told to. Sometimes there's things driving us. And
this is the thing. And sometimes society is making the choice for them in a strange way. I mean, you talked about certain socioeconomic parts of town are ignored. Is that by design?
Yeah.
You know, do people say, I can't, they're always going to be like that.
I know.
You know, Katriona, you were always going to be. And you went, wait a second. No, I'm not. And, you know, that brings you to Dublin. People hear your name, Katriona O'Sullivan, and they're hearing this accent. They go, it all started off in the UK with an Irish background. Your Irish heritage is undeniable. But here you are, you're back in Dublin, and you're looking around, and, you know, someone suggests, you're smart. Why don't you think of academia? You're saying, no. You're laughing.
No way.
You laughed at the person.
Yeah, Trinity College, someone like me? Absolutely not.
Yeah, okay, so Trinity to you was the Tower of Babel. Like it was like the Vatican.
I didn't think you were allowed in, Ryan. I actually used to walk past and think you couldn't go in. Yeah. And to be honest, I lived in town. All my friends who went into Trinity went in to rob bikes. That was back in my day. Now they're going in to rob laptops. and they're not my friends now, but they were back then. At the end of the day, like that place and the way they spoke and what they felt like and thought like, there was no way someone like me could go there. And like, but I think what we need to remember about people from Summerhill, Dublin, One, the Flats, poorer communities, like when you put a whole load of poor people together and continually underserve them for many, many years, you are going to get people who don't think like you, who don't act like you. They have a different set of values, but it's not necessarily because potentially they can't be this. It's because they just don't know. So opportunities, right?
Every child is a blank check.
Everyone
has potential to do something. Unfortunately, not everyone has the opportunity.
Exactly.
I was born into privilege. You were born into poverty. We had two totally different backgrounds. As it turns out, you're smarter than me, but you had to fight a much bigger and harder battle to prove that.
And we don't recognise that. Like we don't. Like when we go to school and you're in secondary school and you're doing your leaving cert, Ryan, everybody's taught that they're all equal. Like we don't even talk in secondary school about disadvantage or about disability or about poverty. The world talks about it, but we don't tell kids.
Yeah.
We teach them straight out with the leaving cert. Look, if you don't, or the A levels, if you don't get the points, if you don't get the grades, it's because you didn't work hard and you don't have the same potential. And like, luckily for me, and one thing I will say about women like me, particularly mothers, you will always ask the question, is this it for me? Every woman I know who's been in a dire situation says at some point or another, I need help. And it's our job as a society, I think, to raise up and meet that woman when she asks for help. And I'm so lucky that I was in Dublin. We're in the Celtic Taiga. There was money everywhere and there was loads of grants and services and supports. And when I asked the question, oh my God, Ireland raised itself to me and it said, here's therapy for free and you don't have to wait for it. That was the first step. And then the next step was do an adult education course.
And you did the course and then you went into, you got into a program in Trinity.
Yeah.
And I got the sense towards the end of the book where you were saying that you were happy with your academic achievement. And then I got the sense that they were saying, look what we have.
Yes.
We found one of them in the wild. Yes. And it's like Pygmalion.
Yes, that's what it is.
And you seem to be kind of almost going, I was really happy to get that. It was great, but why am I the dancing bear now? Is that right?
Exactly right.
You seem to resent almost.
I did resent it, and I do resent it, Ryan. And like the gift of education is this why I don't let educated people off. It's because the gift of education, it allows you to think critically about the world. Whatever degree you get, you have this skill where you can actually reflect and go, oh, this isn't fair. They're all poor. They're all rich. Of course, there's going to be differences. And when I went to Trinity, I did really well. And like the Access programme, they said to me, come and be an ambassador and help us get money from the rugby players and the businesses and stand up and say, thank you, Trinity saved me. And for a good while, I was so delighted to do that. But as you become more educated, Ryan, I remember, I'll never forget being in Trinity and there was a load of rugby players and artists, right? And I'm up there saying, and I was so poor and I was homeless. And then I came to Trinity and they saved me. And now I have my own home and I have my family. And I remember thinking, I am probably the smartest person in this room. I not only got here with all of my adversity, I fucking conquered this place.
Claude.
And I am being asked to like pretend like, please, sir, can I have some more?
Olivia Twist.
I didn't. Olivia Twist. I love it. I didn't. But it really jarred with me.
Yeah.
The idea that we need to like remember that excellence lives in every community. Our job is to find the excellence and allow them to shine, not to have a small few nuggets and say we've done enough. And there's loads of us. There's loads of us who can become the nugget, like Lynn Ruan and myself and loads of other people. Or we can actually say, why are we not letting much more of these women become excellent?
And that's the question that continues to be asked. Let's go to the book that changed your life now, our third book of the day. And where are we going with that? I'm really interested to hear yours because your life was so complicated and crazy and chaotic. So where are we going?
Oh, we're going academic a little bit. I'm sorry. Obviously,
don't be sorry.
I'm a psychologist.
You are an academic. So let's do it.
So The Body Keeps the Score by Bezel van der Kolk. So this book before I read this book, Ryan, I couldn't understand why I couldn't hold down relationships. Like even with therapy, education, I couldn't understand why I didn't trust people. Like I walk in a room and I'd be really, I'm on all the time. I'm sensitive to any changes of moods. And I would interpret these changes as being about me, even if they weren't. Say I'd send you a text and you didn't reply straight away. Immediately I'd have a feeling in my belly like, oh, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? What was it? And when I read The Body Keeps the Score, it actually talks about trauma and what it does to you physically, psychologically and emotionally.
That sounds a little PTSD to me, yeah.
It is. It is PTSD. It is about PTSD.
Right.
And when I listen to the book, I wouldn't recommend, well, sorry to Bezel, but like it's heavy. Like it's very dense, but it just made me feel like it's not my fault.
Good.
I didn't, and it also made me realise that you can heal from trauma. And them two things at that particular time in my life were life-changing.
Wow.
Because it made me realise that like, oh, I'm not just a reactor. I am a reactor, but I'm not just a reactor.
Yeah.
I actually have these things in my brain and my body that actually cause me to react. And that was like so forgiving. It was like, oh, I'm not so bad. It's not my fault. I can't get and keep a man.
Yeah.
It's actually to do with the trauma, the lack of trust, the ability, the fear, the bubbles in my stomach, all these things. And it just changed my life.
Remarkable. You know, even in your own book, Poor, which your book is just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you are an amazing person. I'm so happy to be here with you. So I'm just going to say that. It's in my heart, so I have to let it out.
Thank you.
No, really mean that. Jeepers. But, because your book's really short.
It is.
And yet it's huge.
Yes.
And it's packed. And, it's a love story at the end.
Yes.
Mother of three beautiful children. And, you brought one child to the party, as it were, and two more joined the table.
Yes.
If that's a fair way of putting it. And, and you fell in love and you described that situation.
I know, Dave comes off really well.
He comes off really well. Does he shine his armour every night?
Oh my God, stop. Like I have women who stop me and say, will you share a photo of Dave with me? And I'm like, this is so strange.
That's weird.
But he works in the Matter Private, actually.
Does he?
And the CEO stopped him the other day and said, oh, my wife read your wife's book and it's amazing. Yeah. And Dave was like, oh my God, I come across so well in the book as well.
Yeah. Take it.
He's a wonderful man.
You found what you needed.
Yeah.
Which was what?
The two of us actually found each other.
Okay.
So Dave's in recovery as well. The two of us both come from, families that had difficulties. His not a lot less than mine. But the two of us, I suppose, both wanted to love and be loved, and both wanted a family. And but the reality is our relationship and relationships are, you have to choose to love somebody. Like you don't just feel it and then that's it. Like there are obviously difficult times, but you have to choose to keep reaching and meeting each other and loving each other. And me and Dave have done that. Like we commit to each other regularly, but he's just a decent man.
Yeah.
He's really hot as well. He's a bit older now, but he was hot back then, which mattered to me.
You're so superficial. I can't believe that. This book is a fraud. No,
I say that he was hot in the book as well.
Yeah, no, in fairness, you do say that. Was it the leather jacket or?
No, he brought me 20 smokes.
Oh, it's the cigarettes that did it. Yeah. Gosh, what a way to win a gal, eh?
He still slags me about that.
I bet he does. Yeah. There were a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. One of them was, I noticed on your Instagram, I follow you on Instagram, and I noticed one of the days recently you put out a plea and you said something like, it was along the lines of, look, if you're going to say mean things, just keep them to yourself, or don't be cruel.
Yeah.
But cruelty goes with online. I mean, it's not always. And Instagram's generally quite a nice place to be. I'm there myself and people seem largely lovely. But now and again, you get a few had the balls join they kind of come knock at the door with the bag of cans,
Yeah.
So what was that about?
I actually met a person. So it wasn't even...
Oh, it wasn't online?
No. So I went to a writer's residency and I was really nervous because I feel like I'm writing a second book and I feel this imposter syndrome, like I'm not really an artist. Even though the women that they're like, you are an artist.
Yeah, you've probably sold more books than all of them put together. But go on.
I have.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
But I went and the first person I met, she said to me, oh, I defended you and your book against somebody. And I was like, I just went like this, please don't tell me
backhanded,
anything that's going to hurt me. I don't want to hear bad reviews, Ryan. Like, I can search them on Amazon if I want to find them. There's not that many, by the way. But I will be like, I don't want to hear it. And she said, oh, somebody said your book should have been called Poor Choices, not Poor. And I said, oh, well, if you meet her again, tell her I said she's the C word.
Wow.
But I was really hurt. I was really hurt. And I was like, we don't need to tell people bad things about themselves. You know, like, I have this thing I always say to people, like, advice that's not asked for is criticism. And it's the same in these circumstances. So I was really hurt by that. And and I posted it in the moment. I was crying in the moment. And then I had thousands of people who just love my story and love me, which is lovely. And it's not about the woman, because I actually don't think she meant to hurt me, to be honest. I think she just in the moment thought she'd connect with me this way. But it just reminds me, like, I hate that thing. Oh, be kind. You know, everyone's saying be kind, but I mean it, like, be kind, and be kind to people, to hurt people, particularly hurt people, because, like, we do have our reservoirs. There is history there. So, like, if you know that I've been through stuff, like, take special care. Like, I'm a special package at the end of the day. And
handle with care, as they say.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of talked about it on Instagram.
Okay, that's a fair answer. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was when we connected on Instagram after I read the book over Christmas, and you know, it was a real joyful moment where you were saying, oh, hi, and I was going, hi, you know, you're great and it's nice to meet you. But you said something really interesting about, you were kind of nervous about my reaction to the book because something along the lines of, because you thought I was a bit of a knob.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't say that. I'm just...
I did think that, though.
But you did think that. I knew that you were thinking that, but you were too polite to say it. So I'm just going to cut to the chase.
But I felt disingenuous not saying it because I've thought it. Like, so when I think things about people, I feel like I can't be...
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Despite my appearance, I've elephantine skin.
It wasn't, it's to me, like, there are certain, like, when you are, like, Ryan, a lot of the people that would have hurt me through my life would have been very middle class people who didn't understand that I wasn't just making bad choices. Okay. And you come from privilege. I know your story because I've seen you on the TV. So, like, to me, I look at you and go, oh my God, he just would not get me. Yeah. He represents them.
Yeah, I understand
the
that.
Trinity people.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I didn't go there, but I get that you did. But there's only one Trinity student in this studio. It's not me.
But I would have. I hope you're not UCD. Jesus, no, I'm only joking.
Go on.
But there are.
Yeah, so you had a perception of me.
I had a perception of you, and I was afraid of that you wouldn't get the nuance of it. Some people just don't get the nuance of it, that it's complicated. Some people just see a girl who's poor, who got pregnant, who didn't take the chances that were given to her. Yeah. Now, I wouldn't have said that that's what you would have thought, but I was definitely worried about how you would respond to the story.
Why would you care about someone like me and what I thought? Who cares?
It's easy to say that, but it is easy to say that.
Well, I am saying it because it's easy, so I'm saying it.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
But I think, I suppose some of the things, I'm sensitive at the end of the day, and when you tell your story, especially the story like mine, it makes you really vulnerable. And so I wouldn't care, like, sitting in my home what you thought about me, but I actually, in terms of, like, if I had to meet you or be on your TV show or your radio show, I'd be like, oh my God, is he going to, like, get this? He's going to ask me questions that are appropriate to this. Yeah. And I think as well... How
have I done?
Great.
Oh, thank God.
And even in the response to the text, Ryan, you could have just not replied, and you were like, let's chat, here's my number, So, but I understand that, like, there's an inverse snobbery that exists within me as well. But, like, I also think that that's fair for me to be like that.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think, like, when
everyone's winning and everyone's losing, weirdly.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely think there's an inverse snobbery with me. Like, even when I was driving over, I was, like, texting my mates and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet Ryan Tubridy. Because, like, you're the gentry of Ireland at the end of the day. Like, we love you here.
I just imagine that in the WhatsApp, knob.
No, I don't use knob.
What a knob.
Knob's not my terminology.
I'm sure, you've mentioned one or two other words already in this beautiful podcast. But no, I hope that's not bringing it back to being about me. I was just curious about that. Because as you know, that, yes, you can have a certain perception, but we are all, I like to say to my younger colleagues where I'm working now, we're all complicated novels.
Exactly.
Now, but some are more brutal and some are more cruel. Yeah. And there's no doubt about it, but it doesn't matter. Life isn't linear. You know this.
No, it isn't. And I think, when I tell the story of going to Trinity, when I went to Trinity, Ryan, I didn't really get to know anybody because of that feeling. because of feeling like them people are completely different. They won't get me. So I spent my life with the cooks and the cleaners and the security guards. But in some ways that robbed me of relationships as well, because that inverted snobbery that I would have had about everybody who had a bit more privilege than me actually robbed me sometimes of experiences. And over the years, when I've got to know people who come from really different backgrounds than me, it's been amazing, and I've learned so much, and they've learned so much from me. It's just that it can be really terrifying.
The final question we ask Katriona is, what's the name of the autobiography you haven't written yet? Now, we spent pretty much most of the last book at a time talking about your autobiography, which is called Poor, which if you haven't read it and you've enjoyed our chat, honestly, we haven't even skimmed the surface. So pick it up today, download it, do whatever you got to do, but get it. Because it's just it's life-changing. It's something about it. It's got a magic of its own. It's black magic. It's good magic. It's all there. Anyway, that's that. Final question: what are you going to call the next autobiography?
So I'm writing the second one.
Brilliant.
So I'm writing a book, and it's called Hungry, and it's a biography of my body, Ryan, and the things that I've been through as a woman.
Right.
It talks about, how women like me, poor women particularly, or women who are traumatized, how we're driven to be skinny and the things that we do in pursuit of that. So like gastric bands and gastric surgeries. So there's that, but there's also, it's hungry for recognition and connection.
Yeah, it's a great title.
Yeah. So it's about like my experiences, the hunger I've had and the things I've done to achieve lots of different things, and some that weren't very helpful, and some that have been really helpful. So it's Hungry. It's a biography of my body.
When are we going to be reading that?
It will be next March.
March?
Yes.
March 2026?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully March. Yeah,
That's
February or
exciting.
March. Yeah, and it's coming. And I'm like 30,000 words in, and I'm really enjoying it actually. But it's hard because it's a different type of story.
Sometimes when you're due to meet somebody, you have expectations, and hopefully, and they get met. I'm happy to say as we conclude our chat that my expectations have been exceeded, and I'm looking forward to having a coffee with you sometime in due course. But for now, Katriona O'Sullivan, Dr. Katriona O'Sullivan, author of Poor, I hope to say friend for life.
Yeah, 100%.
It's been really lovely. I really mean that. We could do another hour or two, but thank you for your time today, and good luck. You seem like a happy person.
I'm really happy. I'm really good.
Yeah.
That's the ending. I'm really good.
That's good enough for me.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it, another packed episode with some great book recommendations for you to enjoy, all brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. So shop in your local Eason store or explore hundreds of thousands of titles online at easons.com. Order before 6 p.m. for same-day dispatch and enjoy free delivery when you spend over a tenner. Eason, be inspired.